Welcome, Motenta people. Peggy Lee had talent, but with great talent came great insecurities. She cared far too much about what people thought, but it wasn't truly a fault of hers. Not many Hollywood stars could live on their terms. After all, their survival relied on continued audience interest in them. Lee cherished and chased this interest until it left, overworked and then paralyzed with a stroke. How Peggy Lee's luxury obsession ruined her financially. Make sure to watch the video until the end and leave your thoughts in the comments. If you're new here, join our wonderful community by subscribing to the Motentas channel. Our mind produces ideas for us. It's from there that we get our flash of inspiration. But that's not all the mind does. It also protects us or distracts us from harsh reality. But that could easily lead to delusion if care isn't taken. And for Peggy Lee, care wasn't taken. The sultry singer developed a habit of defying herself and crafted a story about herself that she came to believe. Illusions are important, otherwise there's no magic, the award-winning singer and Oscar-nominated actress said in an interview. Turns out, she got spelled by her illusion, and it led to her leading a strange life. A life where she was needy, feeling unloved and alone. She admitted to her neediness, her need for people's approval in an interview where she said she went through a time where she thrived on people's approval and would feel devastated when she didn't get it. Even as at the time of that interview, she still hadn't gotten past this neediness, and she claimed it was a result of her wanting to feel vulnerable. In her words, one can't feel loved without feeling vulnerable. Well, she's an expert in vulnerability, considering it led to her marrying 4 times and having numerous affairs with different men. But let's talk about that later. For now, let's stick with her neediness and how it got her into a lot of ruinous situations. The most ruinous of them of all has to be the time she ruined a project that would have increased her legend even more. Like other prominent singers of the time, the curvy singer decided it was time to take her act to a new level and do a one-woman musical. Peggy can be fickle at times, but this she was sure she wanted to do. She contacted a producer and gathered her crew together. The goal of the musical was simple. Peggy needed to earn. Also, she needed the buzz of feeling loved. According to a biographer, James Gavin, the multi-talented woman had luxurious tastes and went through her money like a hot knife through butter. So, she needed to earn to sustain her lifestyle. It wasn't a healthy way to live for her, as she constantly was exhausted and her throat tired from all the singing. Her need for luxury was something she allegedly carried right into old age. Her script was ready and the show was to commence, but the producer felt that they were missing something. If they wanted the audience to part with their money at the show, they needed an extra wow factor. In essence, Peggy's singing wasn't enough. The producer pulled some strings and managed to get Elizabeth Taylor to come. With Taylor's presence, people were sure to spend. Men would want to show off before the famed Hollywood sexpot. Turns out the producer made a bad move. He didn't count on one factor. The owner of the show felt a little upstaged. She thought that rather than the audience lavishing her with their attention, some of it would go to Taylor. She needed the whole attention of the audience. It wouldn't be the first time she would feel this way about a fellow star. Some reports claim Peggy Lee went ballistic when Barbra Streisand was given 3 times more for a show they were to do in the same venue. While Peggy performed divinely in that show, Barbra didn't. Peggy claims she felt sorry for Barbra, but other sources say Peggy hated the ground Streisand walked on. So on this occasion, initially Lee acted professionally. She walked up to the mic and began to serenade the audience with her low singing voice, which sounded like leaves burning on an autumn day. That sensual voice would always have the audience's attention. It had a beautiful, seductive nature to it, a control that glued listeners to their seats. With that voice, she needn't care that Elizabeth Taylor was in the audience. But she more than cared. Nothing must get in the way of that audience adulation that she thrived on. As she was singing, the singer would interrupt her singing with slight coughs, which she intended as a sign to Elizabeth Taylor to stop smoking. Taylor didn't. Smoking was a habit for her, And besides, her coming was like a favor to the singer herself. When Taylor didn't stop smoking, Peggy lashed out mid-show, screaming, "I can't sing when someone is blowing smoke in my face." The audience was amazed at what they saw and looked at Elizabeth, smoke still trailing from her lit cigar. It became clear that the show was doomed. Peggy herself knew it was doomed, but did she do anything to salvage the show? Not in the least. She even made it worse by going off script and by trying to insert new verses into the script, which she constantly changed, by the way. The constant changes didn't help when it came to remembering her lines. Unfortunately, she didn't get the recognition she wanted, as her performance was too self-centered and mostly revolved around the star's need for people to love her. Her voice was angelic as ever, but her songs didn't so much connect with the audience, who would prefer a rich story to the self-praise they got. This neediness, mood swings, and self-praise pissed off the production team. Behind the star's back, they called her names. The show ended on the third day. Who knows? Maybe if the actress didn't have her insecurities, she would have had a more iconic performance. But what was Peggy Lee without her insecurities? Peggy Lee was born in North Dakota to a father who was a railroad agent and a handyman. She lost her mother when she was 4, and she only had fond memories of her. She only had warm memories of her mother to go by when her father married her stepmother, who, according to the multi-talented star, was evil. Allegedly, the woman beat the star and left her with bruises. In several interviews about her, her stepmother, Min, was always the same thing. Min was evil. However, it turned out that the star may have distorted facts about her past to draw sympathy. She wasn't left with bruises, as people who were familiar with her and her stepmother, they didn't see bruises at any point. It may be the singer and actress embellished facts. However, that is not to say that she and her stepmother didn't have a frosty relationship. It didn't help that her father wasn't usually around, according to the star songstress. So, her neediness could be a result of not feeling loved enough and wanting to compensate for what she lacked in her childhood. Besides, she never had the time to deal with her issues, seeing as her career as meteoric. Yes, her talent shone from an early age. It started from being a member of singing clubs at her church to getting gigs for the local parent-teacher associations. Then the superb singer went to Hollywood, where she sang in nightclubs at night and waited tables by day. She soon got noticed by a radio station. Subsequently, she got gigs at a dinner club, and Benny Goodman plucked her from being a nightclub singer into his orchestra. One of his vocalists had gotten ill, and he needed an instant replacement. He found it in Peggy and thrust her into his orchestra without training. Little wonder she was frightened. It was a lot of responsibility, as she claimed. People weren't eager to listen to her. She was unproven, so it was normal. It wasn't unusual that she missed the technical details of the song, but nothing so overt that she'd upend the group's symphony. However, her chance came. She had learned from Benny Goodman that she always must be prepared. So when it was just her and the sextet, she performed excellently, charming the audience. The sultry singer would then go on to record a song, and the song did some serious numbers. But having broken out, she would soon give it all up. She fell hard for a guitarist in Goodman's orchestra, Dave Barber. She got pregnant from him, and the pair had a shotgun marriage in 1943. So she had to quit, so she could be a wife and a mother. According to her grandmother, this was what Peggy Lee wanted the most. However, a dark rumor settled on Peggy and her husband. Some say Dave wasn't the baby's father. Whether this is true or not, we can't say, but there wasn't any big scandal about the child's parentage. What she longed for more than anything was a stable home life. To maintain this, she turned different offers down even though she and her husband could do with the money she would have made. However, her husband wanted her to return, and he managed to get her to. They began to write songs and had Peggy record them. Then Peggy had a jazz album, which became a sensational hit. Slowly, her family began to pull apart, and she didn't have time for her daughter, and her husband was becoming a worse alcoholic. The success of the album made Lee a big player, and with the singer's unique voice, Johnny Mercer of Capitol Records came running. But the star's voice wasn't unique. You could argue that she stole it. Her situation was more like Elvis's, where he was accused of appropriating songs. The two were both inspired by certain sounds and were only lucky to be the face of those sounds because they helped bring them before a mainstream audience. Lee must have appreciated her sources, because if she didn't, Billie Holiday would have had the sentence, "She stole every damn thing I sing," removed from her biography. Unfortunately, as her career began to grow, her marriage descended into rocks. The actress claimed Dave's alcoholism was one of the factors that led to the divorce. To treat himself, Dave needed to be away from his family so he could protect them from the mess of overcoming his addiction. The two remained in touch and were poised to mend their relationship as they were still very much in love with each other. But death would them part. Dave's absence in the actress's life opened a void within the actress. The man that didn't make her feel lonely was gone. This led the actress to make some strange, questionable decisions. She sought to fill the void by any means necessary. One such means was allegedly becoming one of Frank Sinatra's conquests. It didn't matter to the singer and actress if Frank called her late in the night, as long as it meant she wouldn't be sleeping alone. The actress went from being called the female Frank Sinatra to Frank Sinatra allegedly spending time inside her. It was this crushing feeling of loneliness that drove her into marrying 3 more times, with each of the marriages crashing. No wonder the actress would only regard herself as married once, with the other being experiences. It certainly was an experience to marry her third husband, the actor Dewey Martin, who had a terrible habit of not being able to keep his hands to himself. Apart from her third marriage, the actress also had a hand in the failure of her marriages. The people she married didn't live up to her expectations. She had issues she had to resolve, but ignored them. Her neediness put off her second husband, Brad Dexter, who alleged throughout their honeymoon Peggy wouldn't let him leave the bedroom. So what happened in the fourth marriage, you wonder? Nothing. The marriage crashed just after 3 months. Maybe things would have been different for the singer had she focused on healing and getting help for her feeling of loneliness, rather than throwing herself into her work. After separating from her husband, the actress experimented with new musical sounds, which people loved. After that time, she began to act, after initially declining roles in movies before. So as she wrote songs for films on one hand, she acted in some on the other hand. But when it came to acting, she had serious talent, as she got nominated for an Oscar award quickly into her acting career. Sadly, her time as an actress was short-lived, as the actress claimed no one asked her to act, and people thought she was a crazy alcoholic person. The singer claimed that she wasn't an alcoholic and doesn't even drink. Some reports claim otherwise. Allegedly, the reason the star lost her film career was that she drank like a fish. Warner Brothers resolved not to get the actress another film role, as she supposedly drank so much at a party that she lost all composure. She sang and took a bow, but was too drunk to stand up straight again, James Gavin claimed. That wouldn't be the only time alcohol would get the best of her. There was that time she kissed President Nixon on the cheek. This happened at the White House State Dinner, where the star was billed to perform. Supposedly, the actress drank a lot at the party, that she soldered to where the president was and ignored orders that she shouldn't approach the president. So with her film career dead, all she had was her singing career, and it also faltered as a new genre of music began to hit the market. Then, the full extent of the feeling of loneliness descended on her, to the point that she had her staff talk to her before she slept, and she usually slept around the mornings. It was so intense that she allegedly began to heavily rely on Valium. It didn't help that the star felt that she was under attack. And she was under attack. Her weight was always a point of discussion during interviews. An overzealous journalist said to her during an interview, "You are thinner than when I saw you last." Statements like this were bad for the actress's esteem and her mind. She began to develop psychosomatic issues as she battled exhaustion from working too much. At some point, she had pneumonia, and while she used breathing assistance machines, she still sang. She also had weight issues. Sometimes she had it under control, other times she didn't. The star singer claimed that she only needed to smell food for her to gain weight. So brutal was the media emphasis on her weight that she was who the creator of the Miss Piggy Muppet had in mind when she created the Miss Piggy character. However, sometimes it was Lee doing the fighting. Lee was quick to sue when she felt that she was being cheated. She once sued Disney for royalties of the song she sang for them in The Lady and the Tramp, and she fought for 3 years. It paid off for her, as she got a $2 million settlement. The star would also sue Waldorf Astoria for having floors that made her slip when walking through the hotel. The hotel sacked her, and she plotted her vengeance. The star's health would eventually get the best of her. After years of overworking herself, Peggy Lee eventually suffered a stroke that almost completely paralyzed her. She couldn't speak or sing, but she fought until she couldn't anymore. Death took her away. It's hard to judge reality in Hollywood. In the eyes of some, Peggy Lee was a crazy alcoholic. Why is Errol Flynn remembered for all the wrong reasons? Let's see what the truth is.